right, friends and fam. Thank you guys so much for joining every day is a Saturday. Now I have my one of my favorite guys here, Robert. He's a Marine. Thank you so much for showing up. You are my first in-person guest. I'm actually absolutely excited to have you here. Thank you so much.
Semper Fi.
So let's get to know a little bit about Robert. Robert, so you joined the Marine Corps. What made you join the Marine Corps? How was the Marine Corps for you? What did you do in the Marine Corps?
I was came back from Vietnam in '67 and went back to school. Good move. And one day I was driving by Naval Air Station Jacksonville. I saw two A4s in the break, and I said, "That's what I want to do." So I rejoined the Marine Air Reserve at Jacksonville, VMA 142, Go Gators, and that's how it all started. I was enlisted, and I was a line made it from plane captain to line chief in two other squadrons and of A4s, and progressed on to that. And I was in helicopter squadrons and OV-10 squadron, which was a great move for me. And I moved myself up to chief warrant officer in 1974, and continued on. And I retired from the Marine Corps in 2004. So I had a good run. I enjoyed it. Served with the finest people I had working with me were just superb Americans, and got to fly a little bit, not much. A maintenance officer, you get to fly on. Sometimes you can get a hop on a maintenance ride or something like that, and I enjoyed that. And in the meantime, I got my bachelor's and master's degrees in aeronautics and my pilot's license. I'm a commercial pilot and an instructor pilot now. I'm retired. I was an engineer at NASA and DOD at Edwards. Retired from that, retired from the Marine Air Reserve. Now I'm an instructor, flight instructor out at Fox Field here in Lancaster.
Wow, that's outstanding. So let's go back a little bit into your military career and talk about how you progressed and what rank you were and when you got out and all that stuff. And
Yeah, I started out like everybody else, and finally I worked my way to corporal, and I was working on aircraft. I was a plane captain on A4s and a plane captain on the helicopter, and then I was too old for a direct commission at the time, and they were cutting back. So my commanding officer put me in for the warrant officer program. I didn't even know it, and I got picked up for that in 1974, and progressed all the way to Chief Warrant Officer 4 when I retired. And I enjoyed it. I had a great time. I'd do it again, except the commandant said, no, you're not. So that was the end of that. But so I had 39 and a half years total time, both in the reserves and on active duty. As a matter of fact, my last 2 years in the Marine Air Reserve was on active duty enduring freedom. They called me back to be a maintenance officer in a helicopter squadron before it went over to Afghanistan. And so I retired the day they shipped out. I had to get out. At age 60, you're done. That's federal law. But that's okay. The guys took care of themselves, and everybody came home fine. As a matter of fact, when they came home 6 months later, I've been retired by then, and we had the Marine Corps birthday ball a couple of months after they returned, and my wife and I got married that afternoon, and we went to the ball that night. So I tell people, I said, you want a cheap reception, join the Marines.
and a good time.
Yeah, had a good time.
And a good time.
A lot of work, but a lot of sweat and blood and tears, but it was worth it. And as I said, I worked with the finest folks. The ethics that were involved with these guys were, you wanted to go to work every morning. I can't explain it any other way. I couldn't wait to get up at 5 a.m. and get out there. And I've never felt that way about any other goings on Except, no, now that I instruct, I get up early to get out there to beat the heat and fly with my students. But serving with the Marines the way I did were best years of my life.
Yeah, I mean, 40 years of it, that
Yes,
is a
sir.
long time. And I mean, I have the utmost respect for you, Robert. I mean, my gosh, a lot of people can't hack 4 years, let alone 40. That is a long time to dedicate to the country and serve your country, man.
Well, I was very fortunate in being in great organizations and serving with good folks. And as a matter of fact, if you look at my closet at home, all my camis, all my flight gear, everything still fits. And my mess dress and all that for the Marine Corps ball, it all still fits, thank goodness. So I try to keep my thumb in the pie as best I can.
Yeah, I can't say the same. And I've been out probably longer than you. I mean, not as long as you actually. Actually, you said you got out in 2004, huh?
2004, I was retired.
That's so I got out in 2004. I
Yeah.
joined in 2000.
Yeah,
Wow.
yeah. So, uh, yeah, I was at 2002. I joined HMH 769, which is a CH-53 squadron, and it came out here to Edwards. The Marines put a squadron, or actually two squadrons of helicopters, reserve helicopters, and they both went overseas. Um, so when they moved them here, I guess they found my name that I lived here, and I asked if I wanted to go on active duty for my last tour in the Marine Corps. So it worked out great for me. Number one, it was a great organization. Number two, my retirement points went out of sight, as you can imagine, and I enjoyed that. I was sorry not to be able to go overseas with them because here I was training with them for 2 years. And then he said, "Hey, you got to get out. It's a federal law." But Sergeant Major promised me that he'd bring them all home, and he did. So it worked out fine.
So you're telling me right now, if you would have went past that 40, huh?
Well, we tried to get a waiver and went all the way to Department of Defense, and they just won't. They couldn't do it.
Yeah.
Now, the only way you're going to go stay on active duty after age 60 is if you're a general officer with a command. And, I tried to fake it, but they saw right through me. I wasn't a general, so it didn't work. But as it turned out about right. Everybody came home. It was a good time had by all. And the ball we had when they came back was it was like old home week. So it worked out fine.
That's great. So are you involved in any of the local VFWs or
I did belong to the VFW locally and supported them, and I was in the Marine Corps League for a while, and then I started getting busy flying. So, but I support the veterans associations, and we had the Veterans Parade out here at Quartz Hill a couple of years ago. I marched in that, and I tried to do that. There's and also the Semper Fi League, which is supporting Marines that were injured, disabled. I'm a big contributor there, and that makes me feel good to go down and see those guys. They're terrific, and that's what I'm trying to do now to keep it going, to keep it alive, and keep it righteous, as you may say. So,
yeah.
Anyway, there's a limit to what you can do anymore, but still, I believe in what they're doing, and and they're good organizations, and they're well deserved of our support.
That's great. Yeah, I mean, I haven't really been very good at getting involved in the community. That's kind of why I actually reached out, and that's how I actually
This is great here.
met Robert through Facebook. We have a local page, and I decided to post on there, and I got an overwhelming response from the community, and I was blessed to have so many people interested in checking out the show or even coming on the show, and that's how I got Robert. So, and I'd love to get my local heroes out here, a place to tell their stories and tell their experiences with the rest of the world. So I'm very blessed to have you here, and
well, it's great to be here.
It's amazing.
This is terrific.
Yeah. So let's back up a little bit more. So how did you end up in Vietnam, and did you get drafted?
No. I went to. I got out of high school and I went to Northeastern University in Boston for a year. I don't know how I got in. My grades weren't that terrific. I didn't like high school a whole lot except for math and sciences, but they took me conditionally. In the first year, I was away from home. Haven't been away from home. I was 18 years old, and the work wasn't overwhelming, but it was still concentrated. And I think I got homesick a lot. I know on the weekends I'd catch the bus and go home. It was 90 miles to Springfield, Mass, where I'm from. And I'd spend the weekend at home. And then I found out the world changed because after high school, it's not, your buddies aren't around anymore. And one of the lessons in life, one of the tougher lessons in life was to find out, hey, you're on your own. You got to make your own way in the world. So I had a hard time with that. And so I elected to not go back to school and to join the military, but because the war was getting warm, and I figure if it's going to happen, it's got to happen now. So I signed up. I beat the draft by about 2 or 3 months, I don't know, and then went overseas, came home, and realized that I can't play the guitar. I'm not an actor, so I've got to do something. And so I went back to school, which was a good move. I finally got my degree, and I got 2 degrees out of that. I learned to fly at the same time. I wanted to be an aviator. Problem was in the Navy and the Marine Corps, their standards are very high, which they should be, and my visual acuity wasn't good enough. It was good enough for the FAA, but not for the Navy. So being a warrant was a good move for me. I still got to put my hands on aircraft. I got to ride with those guys, which was fantastic. So for a civilian pilot to fly in military aircraft was a real kick. And then later on, I became an engineer out here at Edwards for Department of Defense and NASA, and I got to ride chase in some of the jets there. And later on, I flew a jet of my own and bought an ex-British airplane, and we used it in air shows and stuff. So that was interesting and exciting. And I met my wife out there. Donna she was an engineer, and she finally got her license, and now she's an instructor as well. So it worked out pretty well.
That's outstanding. So how often do you guys go out flying?
Well, we try to fly once in a while. You got to keep the airplane lubricated and all that. And I believe that these machines, even though they're inanimate objects, they have a soul. They have a soul. They'll tell you, hey, you're not flying me. You're not getting my oil around. I'm going to leak on you, So we try to do that as often as we can. Depends on the weather. Sometimes you got a head cold or you got allergies, you can't go. But we try to get out, a couple of times a month anyway if we can. And we really wanted to do some cross-country flying because we've done that in the past before. But with the weather being what it is now, we've got to curtail that. And now that I'm active with my students, that really comes first because that's the local venue here, and I enjoy doing that. So that's really what we're into right now as far as aviation is concerned. We're both members of the Aircraft Owners and Pilots Association. We're active members with the Fox Field Association out here. Donna's president, I'm vice president. So we try to interact between the pilots and the county, and that usually works out pretty well. So we're pretty active in the aviation world out here.
Yeah, no kidding. Now, when you guys go out flying, how often do you in terms of how far do you guys usually go?
Well,
just around.
In times gone by, we've gone some cross country. We've gone across the United States and back to Oshkosh and some other places. But recently, in the last couple of years, because of COVID and all that, we curtailed a lot of it. The other 2 weeks ago, we flew over to Apple Valley just to exercise the airplane and exercise our new avionics we have in the airplane, and for training, to keep us current as far as man-machine interface or woman-machine interface. So we went over to Apple Valley, have a pretty good restaurant over there. We had a little lunch, and we flew back, and the airplane flew fine. And so that's basically what we're doing now.
Nice. Now, what's the furthest you've ever flown?
Out across the United States.
Okay.
I also flew light aircraft when I was in Europe. I was a member of the flying club over there, and I flew all over Europe. That's different. Number one, the weather is not very good over there. And number two, their rules are really stringent, and it's expensive over there. But I have flown across the United States. I've flown from here to Pensacola. I've flown to New England, flown up the coast. I ferried, I used to ferry aircraft as well. I ferried one airplane for an old squadron mate of mine from here up to upstate Washington. And I never seen so many trees in one place, just flying over trees forever. And I enjoyed that. So, but the big kicker is with these light aircraft, you got to watch the weather. They're not made to go into, bad weather, and you just don't want to do that. And that's what I teach my students. Enjoy it, have fun, go out on a nice day. Different kinds of weather require different kinds of skill levels, and that's what you got to know.
Speaking of all that, have you had any real scary moments?
Oh yeah.
I mean, all through the years, I imagine.
Yeah, I've had times when I had a landing gear issue. I was flying a friend of mine had a Spanish jet, twin engine Spanish jet called a Saida, which I guess is Spanish for arrow. And I checked out in it and I flew it for him. And the design was less than sterling, let's say that. And put the landing gear handle down and nothing happened. Well, come to find out the hydraulic accumulator leaked into the motor, which drives the pump. And that went to hell, as they say, down south, and the gear would not come down. Fortunately, I did a pre-flight, and I religiously, and I made sure that the emergency system worked, and it did. Blew the gear down, as they say, and we landed fine, and then I sold it. I got rid of it. And that was a little bit unnerving. It wasn't like par for the course. It was a little bit unusual. And I had to just sit down on the tarmac and take a deep breath and say, well, we fooled them again. We're back. So, but most of the time, I've been flying. I've got about 6,000 hours of flight and pilot and command time now, including jets. And if you do your due diligence, you should be okay. If you have an emergency, that's what you're trained to handle. Hopefully you're trained to handle emergencies. And worst cases, you bring it down where you have to, any way you have to, with the least amount of damage. And of course, you don't want to be hurt. So that's what I train my students to do. If you have an anomaly of some sort, deal with it, know how to deal with it. And hopefully the outcome is you call me on the phone and say, hey, Robert, get in your car, come up and get me. I had to make a forced landing. And the first thing I say, are you walking and talking? My students say, yes. I said, good. And I come up and get them. That's it.
So you've had some calls, huh?
Yeah, I had a few. But looking back, nothing we couldn't handle. So the ones you can't handle are the ones you really got to worry about.
Right.
And I don't worry too much about that. I've been through so much of it already that I think I can handle just about anything that I read about. And we are constantly learning. Education, you're constantly learning something, especially in aviation where there's so much to know. You've got regulations you've got to conform to and all that kind of stuff, and you've got to keep up with it. It's not a one-time shot. Everybody thinks, well, you take your written exam, take a check ride, and you're done. No, you're learning all the time, and you're constantly practicing. You're constantly keeping your brain working with your hands, and that's important. And I had people, call me and say, "Well, I need a new hobby. I'm thinking about learning to fly." I stop them right there, and I said, "Flying is not a hobby; it's a passion, and it's a very serious business. You want a hobby? Get a sailboat, go fishing, play macrame or something." But flying is a kick. I mean, I love it. I love doing it. It's like being a bird. It's like seeing it the way God sees it, But along with that comes a responsibility of being safe, knowing what you're doing, and bring all the rivets home at one place, So that's the caveat with that.
Yeah. Now, so living out here in the Antelope Valley, and we're close to Edwards Air Force Base. Now, do you go check out the Edwards Air Show and stuff like
Well,
that?
I've been to the air show a couple of years ago when I had Donna and I owned a British jet trainer. We brought it out there, and of course, Donna was working out there at the time. She was a flight test engineer. I had retired by then, so we had a great time. The last air show, we didn't get over there for one reason or another. They were having a hard time getting everybody in and all that, and we just didn't want the hassle this time. But for 18 years, I was the flight line coordinator for the big air show, the country's largest air show at Marine Corps Air Station Miramar.
Mm-hmm.
So for 18 years, I was the flight line coordinator, both as an active duty Marine officer and as a volunteer. And we enjoyed that. We had a great time doing it. So many aircraft in one place, so much talent in one place. We got to know all the performers, and it was a great time. Last couple of years, they've changed the way they're doing business, so legalities and everything crept up, and they can't use volunteers now and all that. So that was a shame, but 18 years was a good run.
Yeah, my gosh. So, do you have like a favorite jet or a plane out there? Is there?
I love them all.
Yeah.
But I got a ride, a couple of rides actually in the F4 Phantom, the old F4 Phantom. What a machine! I'm just a monster, big, powerful aircraft. I got one ride in an F-15 when I was working in St. Louis, and that's a rocket ship. That airplane is a rocket ship. I just can't explain it any better than that. But light aircraft, Donna and I both own a Piper Lance, a six-place, 300 horsepower Lance, and it's a great cross-country aircraft. We enjoy flying that. So there are some aircraft I will not get in. We're not going to mention any of those, but foreign aircraft, I'm checked out in the MiG-15. A friend of mine had a MiG-15, and he wasn't a pilot, and I checked out in it. And I took it to a couple of air shows for him. Now it's gone. He sold it. And the MiG-15 was different. It'll kill you. The airplane will kill you if you let it. So you had to be very careful with it. And the L-29, which is a Czechoslovakian trainer, my wife and I are both checked out in that. And that was fun to fly. And it lands at 75 miles an hour, so you can't hurt yourself real bad. And so that's about the gist of that.
Wow. Sheesh. Now, my experience with aircraft, I worked at Northrop Grumman for 15 years.
They built a great airplane.
Yeah, we worked on the F-35. I worked on all three variants.
I love that engine in that airplane.
Yeah, I'm a huge fan of the Stovall one since it's the Marine Corps one and it does the vertical lift and takeoff. That's pretty.
It's nifty.
It's something definitely like no other. You know.
Well, I just can't imagine being strapped to a machine that'll develop 35,000 pounds of thrust because you can accelerate straight up. And at my age, my body couldn't take it. So I'm glad the young guys are getting into the airplanes like that, but I just can't imagine it.
I mean, as the future grows, I don't know how many more pilot fighters we will have.
Well, that's the thing. That's a good point. That's a good point, Brian, because the human body can only take so much. They say, well, you can take a 7 Gs. You can take 7 Gs for a few seconds. After that, you're going to black out. It's just physics and biology, and you can't get around it. You can wear a G suit, you wear oxygen, and then you brush your suit and all that, and that's okay. But you still can only take that kind of abuse for a short amount of time, and you come back. And I got a ride in an F4 on a chase out here at Edwards when we were chasing on another airplane out for flight test. And after an hour, we got back and landed, and crew chief came up the ladder and looked at me, and I guess I looked pretty sad. I think I was white as a sheet. He says, "Sir, are you okay?" I said, "Yeah, I just got to sit a minute." He says, "Sir, I got to get you out of the seat. I got to pin the seat. I got to get you out of the airplane." So I climbed out of that Martin Baker seat, and he pinned the seat, and I made sure the pins were okay. I climbed down the ladder, and I got into the maintenance debrief and sat down, and I was beat, yanking and banking around and stuff. Even though you're physically not working or lifting bales or anything, it beats you up. You take a beating, and it's not for us old guys anymore. It just isn't. And the young guys have to be in good shape to do that kind of stuff. So I can see where the electronics and the UAVs and all these magical things that are coming along are going to be the wave of the future. And people say to me, "Well, Robert, you're talking about getting rid of pilots, getting rid of airplanes." I said, "No, I'm not saying that. I'm saying that the heavy lifting stuff and 9G turn and all that that's going away, because the machines are so capable that the human being isn't. And to be trained to operate like that, I mean, you got to be the best of the best. Well, how far does that go? I mean, how best can you be before you're burned out?" So, and landing on a carrier, I did that once on a C2. I was sitting in the back, and it's like being in Jonah the whale. You can't see out. You're just hoping you stop. When you stop and no water's coming up, then you're on the boat.
Wow.
So I got out to Lexington once on one of those. I got a hop a ride, and then we launched again. And that was a real kick in the ass. And I'm telling you, these young Navy guys are just superb. These guys are well trained. But how much of that can you got to burn out after a while. So I'm thinking that the stuff that you're doing now and what's coming along is really remarkable. And I think that's the wave of the future. I think you're still going to have manned machines. You're going to have oversight and all. You got to have that. But I'm thinking the capabilities are going to be so exceeding that you're going to have to be on the ground watching.
I think
that's what's going to happen.
I do think what you're going to start seeing a little bit more of too is, and everybody always says playing video games, but you might see a lot more pilots sitting down at a behind a screen flying a big jet.
You're seeing that now. This is where I have a little bit of a rub with some folks when they say, "Well, you're gonna get on this Boeing jetliner, and there's nothing up front but a bunch of diodes and triodes and electrons." And well, I'm here to tell you, I want somebody up there driving a bus. I want somebody up there with a brain that can operate and can make instantaneous decisions. Maybe with the help of all this avionics, yes. But the day of you strap yourself into a inanimate machine and hope for the best, I don't think we're there yet. I don't think we're going to be there for a while. Just like supersonic, everybody, the Concorde. Well, Concorde was a wild machine, but it went supersonic. It went way high altitude. And thank God they never had a puncture in the fuselage or anything, or everybody would have been gone. The way they did lose a couple were bad tires, fire from the tires and things. But all this supersonic testing and everything for airliners. The truth is, and you can doubt this if you want to, but I was in that business for a long time, and I'm here to tell you that, number one, the airlines are not interested. They can't afford it. The machines are so capable that if you have one anomaly, you're going to kill a whole lot of people at one time. And they're not into that. They don't want that. They want better. They want like a 787 that can carry 300 people and make money. That's really what they need. And that's what Boeing has given them. This supersonic airliner thing, that's down the road some, but do you have to get to London in 2 hours? I don't think so. I mean, the food's okay over there now, and folks are very nice, and I spend time there. But I don't need to get there in 2 hours. Actually, if I had my choice, they said, hey, I want you to go to Europe. Okay, well, put me in a boat. You know, you get 3 meals a day in a boat. You got a little gym going on the stern back there. Meet some sweet young things if you're a single guy, whatever. Thinking ahead here, you know. And you get there in 3 days or 4 days. I'd rather do that. As a matter of fact, if you're going across the United States, I've done that many times on commercial airliners when I had to go commercial. And you wait at the you got to get to the airport. You got to stow your car somewhere. You got to get, and you go through the line and the whole thing. Then you finally get on a plane. Then you schlep for 4.5 hours. Then you get in Atlanta. You're there for 3 hours. Hopefully you can find a burger or something to eat. And then you got to get another plane to go somewhere else. Well, I tell you what, you know, somebody brought this up a long time ago. I think it was Caltrans or somebody. But if you get on a train here in LA, if you get on a train, a bullet train like they have in Japan and other places, get on a bullet train at 5 p.m. our time, West Coast, and you launch out, and you got a sleeper car, and you have a dining car, and you read the paper and TV going on and everything. It's almost like being home, only going 185 miles an hour. And the next morning at 7:30, you're in New York. You're refreshed. Got to change your clothes, this and that. Have a little breakfast, and you go to your meeting or whatever. I'd much rather do that. I think I'd rather do that than schlep through airports and cattle cars and the whole thing. That flying, there's just a lot of variations of flying. One is being in a cattle car, which I don't like. Very few people do. Looking out the window used to be fun, and looking in the cockpit and see who's up there and say, hey, you got any of you guys Marines? You know, and one guy would go like this, yeah, I'm not a Marine. Or guy would be wearing the Navy wings. I said, Navy or Marine? Navy. I said, yo, that'll do. You're well trained. Okay, let's do it. But that's flying to get to somewhere. Well, you're going to say, well, that's what you do in your little airplane, your little Piper. Yeah, but we're driving, and we're using our skills and our brains, and it's fun, and it's a skill that we can do, and we can go where we want, stop where we want. If you don't like the weather, we don't go. We stay. We've been known to, stay overnight because of weather. We've done that. You just got to be able to do that. You can't be in a hurry because that'll bite you. So those are the different kinds of flying. The kinds of flying I like to do now is the skills, and not only that, but I'm teaching somebody else the ability to do that as well. But getting on a cattle car anymore is not a thrill. It just isn't a thrill. And getting through the airports and everything, and days gone by, it was different, and it was fun. But I just don't care for it anymore. I don't like doing that. I'd rather take my own plane if I can.
Yeah. Well, it sounds like you want to be able to party on your way to your destination.
Well, the truth be known, Brian, I'll tell you the truth. You're flying all day. You're stopping for fuel a couple of times. You get to your remain overnight destination, wherever that may be, halfway up your trip or wherever. And you land, and you talk to the guys that are at the fixed base operator there, tie down your airplane, make sure it's secure. And you get your bags out, and either you're renting a car, or they give you a crew car, what they call a crew car, or they get you a ride to a hotel. You get to the hotel, you're a little hungry, but you don't want to eat too much. You don't want to feel like a hunk of lead when you get in a plane. So you get a little, and then you're tired because you're working all day. You are working. Your brain is working all day. All those electrons going through your head have been active all day long, and you're tired.
And your nerves have been on a little bit on,
They can be.
I'm sure
Sure.
there's a little bit of some nerving.
Yeah, like with Donna will lean over and say, "Hey, Robert, check your heading, check your altitude." She keeps an eye on me. So anyway, we get down. You're tired, and you're glad to hit the rack. Now the old days of partying, and that was when I was in the military, in the Marine Corps. Oh, they can party. Those guys are something. We'd go on deployment, and we take over the club.
Oh yeah.
We take over the club, and we have a great time. But that's frowned on now. The drinking and all that's frowned on. It's been frowned on for years, but I'm telling you, there was some whoopie doos going on.
It may be frowned on, but it doesn't stop.
It doesn't stop.
It doesn't stop nobody, right? So, and now that we're talking some Marine, let's talk some Marine stories a little bit. So now, where all were you stationed?
Oh God, my first squadron was NAS Jacksonville, VMA 142 A4 Reserve Squadron. When I got out of college, I finished school, came back up to New England. I got a job with Pratt & Whitney Aircraft as an engineer for them, and I joined VMA 322 at Marine or Naval Air Station, South Weymouth. So it was the New England Marine Air Reserve Squadron, and that was a great bunch. They flew out over Cape Cod. They did all kinds of stuff. We transpacked here, we transpacked there, and we had the Marine Corps Ball in 1973. The Marine Corps Ball was held at the Playboy Club in Boston. Can you believe that? I'm not even going to tell you what happened there, but it was a goings on, man.
I'm sure it was a great time.
I bet you if the commandant knew about it, he'd have been there too. But we had a great time. So, and then I went overseas for my company for a couple of years, and I came back and joined VMO 4, Observation Squadron 4. They had the OV-10, twin-engine turboprop observation aircraft. And they were at Dobbins Air Force Base, and the corner of Dobbins was given to the Navy. So they called it NAS Dobbins, but it was really an Air Force base. But at NAS Dobbins, there was two squadrons. There was a squadron of helicopters, attack helicopters, AH-1Js, and our squadron of OV-10s. And I was in the OV-10 unit. But the maintenance officer next door in the helicopter outfit heard I was a field engineer for Pratt & Whitney, and there were Pratt & Whitney engines on the helicopter. So I was loaned out to them once in a while, which I enjoyed doing. They were a great bunch. So I had a great time I was with that squadron for a couple of years. And then I finally came out to the West Coast to work for DOD. And I joined the squadron at Tustin, helicopter squadron at Tustin. And then they needed an officer in charge for a new unit up at Alameda, which doesn't exist anymore. But Alameda was right across the bay from San Francisco. So I used to fly a little airplane up there for my drills. And I joined that unit up there, and they made me OIC for 2 years of a second-level maintenance organization. And I took guys from different squadrons, put them together, made sure they had the schooling they needed and everything, helped them along. And we had a great unit when I left. So I got a nice letter out of it and all that. So I commanded that unit. For a warrant officer, it's a little different. It was a little strange, but they said, "You're it." Good. And they gave me another guy. And I had some great NCOs. Those NCOs I had were top of the line, great folks. I mean, these were professionals. So I enjoyed that. I really enjoyed that. And then, so I was with that squadron. And then I joined HMH 769, which came out here to Edwards for 2 years for Enduring Freedom. And I joined them. And that was it. So I was in OV-10s. I was in A4s. 2 squadrons of A4s, 1 squadron of OV-10s, a couple of squadrons of helos. So I got to see it all. See it all.
Now, out of all those, what's your favorite? Do you have a favorite?
Oh, yeah. I got to hop in a 2-seater A4. I enjoyed that. But the OV-10 squadron, they knew I was a commercial pilot. So some of the guys let me ride with them occasionally. Not always. when I could, I'd like to get the enlisted guys in the back seat. If they had an open seat, I'd get one of my enlisted guys, because they don't get to do it. And when we went out to Yuma, we went out for 2 weeks to Yuma, and we were out on the range, and the CEO says, "Hey, you got to fly the range. You got to get a range hop." So I got in the back of one of the guys, and we went out on the range, and it was fun. We shot up stuff and everything. It was cool. But the OV-10 was fun, and it wasn't a jet. It was a turboprop, safe airplane, landing 200 feet if you had to, and it did have a back seat, and it had the ejection seat was very fast. The LW3 seat, I had to learn how to use it. I never needed it, but it was there, and I think the OV-10 was one of the funnest, most fun squadrons I was in.
Nice. Now, what about duty stations? What would be your top duty station, do you think, out of all the duty stations you've been to?
I would say, thinking back, and off the top of my head, Brian, I would say probably Tustin. And I'll tell you why, because you're right there in Orange County. In the evening, if you had no night ops going on or anything, some of the guys would go down to on the water to Balboa, get seafood or something. So that was a little different than being here in the desert. That's why I enjoy Tustin, I think. And a lot going on there. A lot of different kinds of squadrons were at Tustin and the Orange County facility, which made it interesting. So I, off the top of my head, I would say Tustin for a duty station. Alameda was okay, but that traffic around San Francisco was awful. That was tough getting in there, getting out of there. When I could, I flew up there from here for my drill weekends, and occasionally I'd have to go up there because I was OIC of the unit. I had to get up there a couple of times during the week or during the month, and that was okay. It was interesting, and the view from across the bay was terrific. But as far as if I was stationed somewhere full time, Tustin would have been a choice.
Nice. Now, out of your 40 years, is there a favorite story, a good Marine story that sticks out to you, or you have too many?
Well, there's
I'm
a
sure
few.
There's a lot.
War story number 46. I got to tell you.
Okay.
There we were in Yuma in the OV-10 unit. We transpacked our OV-10s to Yuma for a 2-week active duty tour. Along with that, our aircraft, we also had a C-119, a hand-me-down from the Air Reserve. And it said U.S. Air Force on the side, but it was marked out, and then the Marines were put on top of it. It was an old, leaky, twin-engine cargo plane. I rode on that one. I got to ride on that one all the way out to Yuma and back. And I look out the window, and it had a big doghouse kind of cockpit. I look out the window, and I asked the crew chief, the first mech. He was a young sergeant, nice guy. I said, "Hey, Sarge." I said, "Look, Sergeant." I said, "You don't call him Sergeant in the Marines."
Yeah.
Hey, Sergeant, isn't that leaking oil? That engine, old recip engine? He said, "Sir," he says, "when it quits leaking, we're in trouble." So I just sat there with my fingers crossed, my eyes closed. But we get to Yuma. Our commanding officer was Lieutenant Colonel, big guy, great guy. How he got in an OV-10, I don't know. But he was our commander. He made colonel. He got promoted to colonel, got the word while we were out there. So that night, the XO and the CEO and a couple of guys got together and said, "Look, we're going to have a squadron party tomorrow night out here at the club. We're going to rent the club or whatever we got to do. We're going to go into town and get nachos and stuff." Yuma, that's Mexican food par excellence. There's a place called Cretines. It still exists. And there's Marine Corps plaques all over the walls in that place. And they had takeout. So the old man calls me in. He says, "Stambovsky." He says, "Listen, you don't drink, do you?" I said, "No, sir." I don't drink. He says, "Listen, this is what I want you to do. We're going to call an order in to Cretines. You got to go down, take the Take the staff car. Take the staff car and go down. Now, don't wear a flying suit. Put on your camis. You'll get through the gate, no problem. I guess he greased the guy at the gate. I don't know how he did that. So I get to the gate, and the Marine passes me through. I get into town. I got to Cretines, and there's sheets, 4 or 5 sheets of these nachos. And I'm here to tell you, those jalapenos will burn the top of your head off. But anyway, I got them in the trunk. I got them out to the base. Got them over to the party. And about 11:30, 12 o'clock, almost midnight. And these guys had a flying schedule the next day. About quarter of 12. I couldn't make this up. CEO calls me over. He says, Stambo, he says, you're the only sober guy in the outfit right now. I want you to go over to Whittier, across the California line. Arizona and California, that's where the line was. Well, in Arizona, things close down an hour before they do in California, all the booze joints. He said, I want you to go across the state line, find a 7-Eleven and buy beer. He gave me a list of stuff. Gave me a pot full of money. I said, sir, you sure you want me to? Yeah, go ahead. I'll get you a hop tomorrow. I'll put you in OV10 tomorrow. I said, I want to choose the pilot. I want to choose the guy who's not drinking, you know. So anyway, I go across to the California side. I find a 7-Eleven. I walk in there. I said, this is for my Marines. Guy gave me a discount. I had cases of beer, this and that. Get in the staff car, and I thought, I'm going to go to jail. I'm going to get to the gate, and the kid's going to throw me in a brig, you know. Sir, what are you doing? I said, listen, I got to tell you the truth because I haven't got time. I haven't got time to lie to you. This is it. I got beer and stuff. My CEO got promoted to full colonel. Just let me by. And the guy thought he was going to cry. I thought I had him in tears, you know. I said, I gotta get through this. I got a hop to take tomorrow, you know. So I got through the gate, and I was a hero. I brought the beer, I brought the nachos. I was a hero. So anyway, next day, the old man put me in one of the OV-10s. Went out to the Chocolate Mountain Range, and we came in threes, and we shot up targets and all kinds of stuff. It was a great time. So the OV-10 outfit was a good bunch. It was a great bunch. And so that's one more story. Another one is in my last squadron, we had CH-53s, big heavy lifters, single rotor, big heavy. It's like an apartment building with a rotor on top, you know, 70,000-pound aircraft. So they were going on a night hop. They had 4 aircraft were going on a night hop, night vision goggle training. So they asked me if I want to go. I said, nah, I can't see out there. It's pitch black out there. I'm not doing that. And I can't help you. I'm not going to be sitting up front or anything. So I elected not to go. But what I did was when the guys after they briefed and they walked to the aircraft getting ready to start them, I had oranges. I don't know where I got them, but I had a bunch of oranges. So I went from one aircraft to the next, and the guys had their helmet bags, the crew and the aviators, and I gave everybody an orange. I said, when you get back, have an orange. Oranges are good for you.
Yeah.
The old man looked at me and he says, I'm going to call you Mother Goose. Eat
your fruit.
He said, you take care of us like a grandma.
Oh, man.
I did. I was the oldest guy in the squadron, and I revered those guys. I just revered them for what they could do, you know, for their intellect and their skills, and they worked so hard. And so that was sort of fun. And there's a bunch of other things that come to mind over time. I'll think of much more on the way home tonight, but this afternoon. But anyway, those are some of the things that hit me. And but one of the best things was when I found out one of my guys, one of my staff sergeants. This was a squadron up in San Francisco, up at Alameda. This guy was a reservist. He was he worked in numbers and everything. He was insurance, and he was working in admin He was working at admin, maintenance admin, and that's very important because you got to keep track of all your maintenance and what goes where and what's ordered and all that kind of stuff. It's a big deal. So I was staff sergeant, and he called me over to his office, and he said, "Sir," he says, "I should have been promoted, and I got passed over." I said, "What do you mean you got passed over?" He says, "Well, I haven't heard from anybody, and I got a letter that I was being considered for a gunnery sergeant, which is a big deal, as you know. Being a gunny is God Almighty. You know? You're a warrant officer, great. I'm a gunny. Oh, move on. Let me get out of your way. So, let me get out of your way, gunny." So anyway, I knew Lee Ermey, by the way. I knew him personally. But anyway, I called Headquarters Marine Corps. I called him, and I got permission from my CO to call him. I said, "This is the guy. What's going on?" "Oh, his paperwork got lost, this and that." I said, "Listen, the guy's an ace. He's terrific. He's good at what he does. He does it for SSV. I never had a problem with this guy. The guy's terrific. I want him promoted. I want him promoted. Why can't he not be promoted? I'll get back to you tomorrow." Okay. Guy got back to me tomorrow. The guy was a gunny. Called me from Headquarters Marine Corps. His promotion papers will be en route next week. I said, "You promise?" He says, "Yes, sir. Yes, sir." All right. So I told my CO, I said, "He's promoted, and we'll present it to him in Squadron Bay. You know, do that. When it comes down, we'll promote it." So I called him. I went over to his office. I said, "You're going to be a gunnery sergeant next week, and it's retroactive. They'll last you for 5 months."
Damn.
That's not right. That's not right.
Yeah.
And the beauty of being able to take care of your people was the greatest thing I ever did as a Marine. Taking care of my people as best I could was the greatest thing I ever accomplished, or felt I could accomplish. You know, doing the mission, all that, you know, that's what our job was. But taking care of your people was as important as anything. And one of our generals told us that too. And so this was one example where I was able, not because of my rank or anything else, but because it needed to be done. If I didn't do it, somebody else would have done it. Somebody else would have done it because he'd have complained to somebody, which he should do. And because it's not right. It's not right. And you don't screw anybody over. You can't do that. So I think that's one of the best accomplishments I did in 39 years was get him promoted to gunny.
That's awesome.
And I'm proud of that because if I had a problem, I'd want somebody to go to bat for me. You know, a righteous problem. And the guy had a righteous issue. Go to bat for him and get it fixed. And that's important. And I think it's important anywhere, especially when you've got an organization like the United States Marine Corps.
Well, it's important for the sake of retention. You know what I mean?
Exactly.
If you want your people to come back,
that's right.
You know, you
you
keep smacking someone in the face. I don't think they're going to come up to you much anymore.
They're going to walk away.
Right.
They're going to walk away, and they should.
Yeah.
You know. So anyway, those are some of the fun things that happened and the good things that happened. It was a lot of work, a lot of long hours. God knows that. But, you know, when you look back on it, I'd do it again. My body couldn't take it, but I'd do it again.
Yeah.
I've had some replacement parts since, and you know they say, well, at 60 you got to get out. There's a good reason for that.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah.
And because you can't keep up with those kids anymore. You just can't.
Our mind can, but the body can't.
The rest of you get tired. You know.
My 18-year-old daughter wanted to race me, and I thought, wow, you know,
piece of cake.
I'm 42. I got this still. She smoked me.
Yeah.
You know?
Oh yeah. It just happens.
Yeah. In my mind, I was like, I got this.
Yeah.
But nah, she smoked me.
So the best thing, what you take out of that is pass your knowledge, pass down your knowledge. And when I had to retire, you know, everybody said, well, it's sad you had to get out. You can't wear the uniform anymore. And that was true. I felt bad about that. But then my CO called me in and he says, Stambo, we're putting you in for a medal, this and that. I said, thank you, I appreciate it. Got me a nice letter from the Commandant General. He says, and he says, I'm getting out too. I got to get out. He made full colonel. He had to get out. So we sat down and cried in our beer a little. And then he says to me something that I never forgotten. He says, you know, look out the window. I look out the window down in Hangar Bay. The kids are working on the machines, and they're doing their thing and all that. Look out the window. Yes, sir. He says, look what's coming up behind us. They're good. Have no fear. They'll carry on. And I never forget that. And that's why I feel good about it. I did my thing. Everybody says you did your thing. You got good folks coming up behind you. And that's true. Not everywhere, but it's the places I worked. The guys that came up behind us they're going to carry on. They're going to carry on. And that when we say Semper Fidelis, always faithful, that's true. So when they say Semper Fi, that means carry on in the same tradition and keep the faith. And I think that's what we're doing.
Yeah, and that's one thing that's great about the Marine Corps is they're very good with tradition.
Yeah.
And one of the biggest traditions they've always had is developing a true war fighter.
That's it.
And you know, the ones that want to run towards the fire, not away from it. But you know, the Marine Corps is been amazing. It's like here we are. We're generations apart, but we're
right.
we're like brothers, you know,
That's
and we
it.
can sit here, we can have conversation. You know, like no, you know, I have the utmost respect for you because you laid the groundwork, you know, for a Marine like me, and for our fellow Marines. I mean, and that's all we do is while we're
That's
in,
what we're doing. That's right.
we're laying our foundation and keeping it building as it goes, right? And I think that no matter what, and no matter where the world's at, the one thing you can rest assured is that the United States is going to produce some badass war fighters.
That's right. Yeah. And one of the coolest things, you know, technology is a great thing, and you see every once in a while these guys they have their truck. I have a nice truck. Or a motorcycle. I'm not a motorcycle guy because I think they're dangerous, but
Yeah,
I don't want to break anything or I
he's
can't
saying
fly
they're
anymore.
dangerous and he flies.
Yeah, I fly an airplane, but at least I got a floor, you know.
Right,
I got
true.
control.
Yeah,
But that's another deal altogether. But I see some of these guys and they have these beautiful lacquer paint jobs on their truck, USMC, and they have the globe and anchor on the hood or something. I always ask a guy, where did you get that done? You know,
my car is actually getting it done right now. It's a wrap that you go do, and I'm actually putting it on.
I got to find out where you do.
Okay, so when it comes back, I'll
gotta
show
see
you
it.
the pictures of it all.
Yeah.
It's getting wrapped with like the American flag, and then putting the eagle globe and anchor in it.
That's awesome.
So
Awesome.
yeah, my wife surprised me with that. So
Yeah.
I can't wait to have the
I gotta
final
see
product,
that.
and I'll show it
Yeah,
to you.
yeah. That's cool.
But yeah, I'm gonna be one of those guys rolling around the
like
valley with that.
That's right.
But is there anything else, Robert, that you'd like to share with us? Any, last, any really, things that you want everybody else to know?
Well, I'll say this to young folks that are still in school, high school, junior high school, those kinds of places, and maybe looking at getting into the military one way or the other. I would say from experience, I went in and then I got an education and then stayed in the reserves and then went on active duty and back in the reserves. It worked out okay for me as time shows. But what I recommend is if you have an idea what you want to do, stay in school, get your education, because an educated with your education puts you in better stead, and it gives you an edge, and your promotion and everything else comes along better. So I would say stay in school, get your education. Now, if you can't decide what you want to do, or there's money issues, God knows that happens, then do the best you can with what you got. But always keep in mind that education thing, that piece of paper, is your ticket to ride. It's your ticket to ride. It gets your foot in the door. I'm not saying it's magic. And the other thing I want to say is go study something useful. this, you know, er, early French poetry, forget that. That's not going to do any good for you. You can do it as a hobby, but really get something that you can use that's needed, and stay in school as best you can, because that's your ticket to ride, whether you go in the military or anything else. If I had to do it again, I'm not complaining. I'm I did okay, but if I had to do it again, that first year I went to school, I should have stayed in school, got my degree, then going in. I'd have been a lot better off. I'd have retired as a lieutenant colonel instead of a chief warrant officer, which is not a big deal, but because it's only $1.98 difference a month, I think. But I'd have got there a lot quicker. And I'm just saying, I had young enlisted guys, and I had young NCOs, and you could tell the guys that had some kind of education, or they were pursuing it. They're miles ahead of anybody else in the league. So that's what I would tell youngsters coming up now. You want to go in the service, you want to do this, great. Get as much education, learn as much as you can, as far as you can, and then do the best you can with what you got, and then press on, and always move forward. That's what we train. Lock and load, fix bayonets, and go forward. That would be my best advice to anybody coming along.
That's great advice. And like I said, once again, Robert, I really appreciate you coming on, taking the time, sharing your stories and your experiences with us.
This is great. I appreciate you doing this.
Oh, absolutely. And
Come fly with us.
I'm glad that I have a Marine on here with me as my first in-person guest.
Hoorah.
And man, it's been much of a pleasure. But friends and family, thank you guys so much again for watching Every Day is a Saturday with your host, me, myself, and I, Brian Roof. If you guys could share the show, that would help a lot. And until next time,
Hoorah.